All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Libraries and Weight Rooms podcast. My name is DJ Ligori, and today we are on episode number 99, and we're breaking a little bit of a milestone today. You actually will be able to watch this podcast on both Spotify and YouTube. I'm looking at myself in the camera right now, testing out a couple things. I'm trying to see what's the simplest and most efficient way to do this. I've been messing around with different ways of presenting this podcast as I grow as a podcaster, you could say, or as I want to kind of develop different content moving forward. And today, what I want to talk about is this idea that is super, super important to me. And it's something that I have found to be very common amongst extremely successful people. And so over the past 3 to 4 years of this, you could say, personal development journey, I've studied a lot of coaches and entrepreneurs and super successful people. And one thing that I find amongst all of them is their ability to be consistent. And Nick Bare, who is the he's the founder of BPN, Bare Performance Nutrition, their supplement company. He said something around consistency that I thought was so powerful, that made so much sense. And he said, I would rather be consistently good instead of occasionally great. And I thought that was so profound because it kind of like pushed back this idea that we all had to be great all the time. Like, it's really hard to be great all of the time. It's easier to be good more consistently. Right. So that was kind of what he was getting at. And I think that's super important. And another thing that when I heard about this idea of consistency, or at least when I noticed it in a lot of these people, it made me think of the compound effect. And if you haven't heard of the compound effect, it's actually a book written by Darren Hardy. And it basically talks about the super simple, small little things that you do on a daily basis compound over time and end up having an extraordinary result, right? End up really producing these great changes and impact in your life. And in the book, he talks about, I don't know exactly the cities he was referring to, but the premise of the compound effect, he outlines, if, say, you have a flight from like New York to LA, it's a direct flight. If you change the angle of the plane by 1 degree, that flight going from New York to LA ends up in a completely different area, right? Just from a 1 degree change. Now, a 1 degree change might not seem like that big of an effect or an impact. Yet when you extend that over, the thousands of miles that were covered going from New York to LA, it ends up making this huge change, right? This huge impact. Well, that's the exact same thing with our ability as human beings to be consistent, right? To be consistent with certain habits, and we'll get into some of these in this episode, that if we are consistent with them on a daily basis over and over and over again, it might not necessarily feel like we're making these huge incremental changes, but yet if we stay consistent with it for a long enough time, then we'll start to see the reward. And so really, consistency is just really about repetition, right? It's just about doing something over and over and over again. And as we continue to be consistent with whatever it is, we make mid-course adjustments. And like, this is something that my father always told me. He said the greatest teams make great adjustments, right? Great coaches make great adjustments. That's what halftime is for, right? So as we be consistent in whatever area we're trying to be consistent in, we're going to make small changes, right? That isn't going to push us off of our ability to be consistent. It's just going to change exactly the strategy that we apply to being consistent. So today, what I want to do is I quickly want to cover, how do we be more consistent with whatever it is we want to be consistent? And so I have 3 ideas that I think are pretty important in this area. And originally, when I labeled these 1, 2, 3. And as I was kind of reading them back, I said, you know what? I think that one should be 1 and that one should be 3. So I'm actually going to mix these up a little bit. So the first one is, we have to actually define, what do we want to be consistent with? Right? This can be a healthy diet. This could be really showing up a certain way in a relationship. This could be a morning routine. This could be a nighttime routine. Personally, the things that I want to be consistent with is my morning routine, my nighttime routine, exercise, and reading. And I do those on a daily basis. And in all transparency, am I 100% consistent with them? No, I'm not. I would say I'm about 90% consistent with them. Yet there are certain things when I know I don't do them, it really actually does have a little bit of an effect on me, right? And I can feel it. And then if I don't do it for 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, then I really start to feel that effect, right? So it's almost like a negative compound effect. So the key to, I think, a great way to kind of jump into being consistent, if it's something that you really want to do a better job of, which I highly recommend you do, is to develop a morning and a nighttime routine. And I think this is a really, really great way to dive into the world of consistency, because you can make these super simple, right? You can make these literally, you wake up and you take 10 deep breaths and you drink 8 ounces of water. And you do that every single morning. And then right before you go to bed, say you have a little notebook by your bed, right? You write down 5 things that you're grateful for. Maybe you write down 1 thing you're grateful for to start, right? Make it super, super simple, right? This isn't about immediate impact, right? Think about that 1 degree change, right? When that plane went from New York City to, say, Pennsylvania, there probably wasn't too big of a change, right? Because that's kind of, it's a close, it's not a long impact there, right? That's a short destination, right? But if we extend this, right, from a New York to an LA time frame, right, we're looking for long-term gains here, right? Long-term gains such as discipline. So think about that, right? A morning and a nighttime routine. What's a simple little thing that you can do to start, being more consistent with those? The second thing, what does it actually look like when you are consistent in that area? So for example, say you want to be more consistent with exercise. Okay, great. How many days a week do you want to go to the gym? Or how many days a week do you want to exercise? Once you have that number, how long do you plan on actually exercising for each day? 45 minutes, an hour, 90 minutes, right? And then to get even more specific, what types of exercise? How many reps? How many sets? When's your cardio? Right? When's your strength? When's your power? Right? When's your HIIT? Right? When's yoga? When's stretching? Right? When you get into all of these things, you start to get very specific. And when you get more specific, you actually start to get more clarity. And when you get more clarity, you then can start to measure things easier. And when you can measure things easier, that's when you start to improve, right? I think I've made a podcast before about how if you want to improve anything, you measure it. Well, it's tough to measure things when they're unclear. So if you get specific with exactly it is of what you want to be consistent with, it provides more clarity and it makes it easier to actually measure if you're being consistent with that thing. So number 3, what does it actually look like to be consistent in this area that you want to be consistent with? And number 3, what does it look like when you are consistent in that area? That's number 2. I told you guys I kind of mixed the numbers up here after my further review. But number 3, the last one, which I think is the most important, watch out for instant gratification. And this is something actually that a colleague of mine just sent to me this morning. I actually read it, and they talked about how we as a society, we have a problem. We have a dopamine challenge, right? Dopamine gets spiked from pleasure, from our phone, from social media, from Netflix, from fast food, right? These are instant gratification tools. And so when we get instantly gratified, we get pulled right into it. And we get knocked off of that consistent course, right? Think about after a long day of work, right? You don't really want to come home and make yourself a big dinner. McDonald's is right down the road. It's easy, instantly gratified, right? Convenience. You're bored, right? You want to go right on your phone. You want to go on social media. You had a difficult project at work. You can numb it by going on your phone, numb it by going on social media, right? So as we develop these routines to be more consistent, think about where in your day am I going to be tempted for instant gratification? Or where am I in my day am I going to be tempted to hop on my phone or to go on social media or come home and watch Netflix for hours, right? That's actually something, in all transparency, I've struggled with over the last couple of weeks, is Netflix. It's one of the things when I was done with my day of work, I would eat dinner and I'd love just sitting on the couch, but I realized time went by so fast and I wasn't getting to bed on time. And then the next day started a little bit slow, right? So I wanted to get a little bit better with that consistency of, all right, if I sit down at this time, here's when I have to stop, right? Just because I realized that the sleep was more important than me just sitting there watching Netflix. All right, so real quick, let me go over this again. Number 1, define what you want to be consistent with. Number 2, what does it look like to be consistent in that area? And then number 3, watch out for instant gratification and those dopamine spikers. All right, consistency will change your life. I promise you that. It's something that I've truly bought into over the past 3 years, and I've seen some changes, right? I've seen some changes in some of the things that I've been consistent with, and I think once we start being consistent and we kind of create these habits and we create these new routines, we're going to want to stay there because we're going to see these results. All right. So thank you so much for tuning in today. Episode number 99, big milestone for next episode, big 100. So thank you so much for your time today. Hope you guys got some great value out of this episode. And everybody take care. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon.